Hey everybody, come on in. We're gonna go into the auxiliary machine shops, the one where no computers are allowed. We're gonna answer every question you have about clampers. It's gonna be great. We're gonna figure it all out. Come on in. All right, so on with our clamper video. So the first question we get asked the most often is, should I buy long pole? Should I buy short pole? I really think long is better because long is better, right? Not always, not always. But just to give you an overview, this is a long pole lever. This distance from here to here is fairly long. And if you pull the brake lever all the way down to the handlebar, it moves 37 millimeters. This is a long pole, 37 millimeters. This is a short pole lever. This distance from here, the pivot to where the cable head is, much shorter. And you pull this all the way to the handlebar. We've got about 25 millimeters. So that's the difference. And those 10, 12 millimeters, that makes a lot of difference. Especially with our brakes, because we use a cable, and short pole means less friction, less cable movement. But what's really going on in there? What's going on, here we have, this is our long pole lever. And we rotate it, the lever rotates this much. This is the angle. This is the angle of the brake arm, right here. So that rotates, they both rotate similarly, very, very close. On a long lever, this rotates this much, this rotates this much, but they're only going the same amount of degrees. So when you pull a long lever, this is what it's pulling. This distance is longer than this distance. That should be pretty clear. Same with the short. What we need to do is use short pole with short pole. They need to correspond. And I'll get to that. Long with long. So let's say you have a short pole lever, but you think, I'll get long pole clampers and they'll be really powerful. So we connect a cable from the long pole to the short pole clamper, and that pulls that's the cable. The problem is, this is going to go this amount of degrees, but it's only going to go this distance. And so when this gets over here, this is it. So you're not getting your full throw. So what happens is, you've got this pulling a lot. This doesn't need to go as far, although it is the same angle. What happens is the pads move very quick, and they come in, which is great because you can run the pads far away from the rotor, but when you get there, you're not going to have very much leverage. Think of, if you want to pick something up, if you have a pry bar or a crowbar and you want to get under something and pry it up, you don't put half the crowbar on and try to lift it. You just put the tip in there. And then you have this long lever arm to lift it up. And this right here is putting half the crowbar under it. This right here is just putting the tip under it. General, for comparison. So you go long lever, short pull brake, pads are going to move fast, but actually it's going to be very little power because this is not getting a lot of leverage. Now, short pull to a long pull. Long pull clamper, short pull. What happens here is the lever goes all the way to the handlebar. It travels this distance, but this distance it's going to be the same here. So really, this is only going about this far. Now what's going to happen here is you have a lot of leverage, and here you have a lot of leverage also, because this is a longer arm. The actuating side, you want that to be short. The reaction side, if it's long, it's going to move a lot. There's going to be a tremendous amount of leverage, but you're gonna have to run your pads right next to the rotor, and when they hit the rotor, the power is gonna overwhelm everything. Your cable's just gonna stretch. It's gonna be horrible modulation. Also, your rotor's gonna rub, it's gonna drive you crazy. So that is your basic intro to long pull versus short pull. All right, now we're at the mounting portion of our exciting video. This is what's called an IS mount. This was the first mount, this part right here, that we could all agree on that became a standard. It's cheap to make, it's a flat piece of steel, you weld it on, aluminum, what have you. For welded bikes, it's very easy. This is called an IS, and on an IS, on the clamper, on all these brakes, which are all the same as far as mounting goes, very important to keep in mind, 2 bolts go straight down. So we have 2 bolts that go straight down, and we have 2 bolts that go sideways. So we need an adapter, and that's what this is. This is one of ours. Now this is called a plus 20. So this fork, I believe, is designed for a 160 rotor with a 0. You put a 20 on, that's a 180. And then you want to go big, this is a plus 40. Now the other style, the next style we're going to talk about is what's called post mount. And there's a lot of welded bikes with these on too. The post goes directly up. You don't need the side screws to the top screws. This one is just directly into the frame. These 2 screws directly in. This has an adapter on it for some reason. It's not even finished, 20 millimeter. So that is called, well, that's what's called a post mount. And here's a different adapter, different manufacturer. This, I believe, is a plus 20. Does the exact same thing. All the adapters do the exact same thing. You can buy from any manufacturer. You can use what's on your bike, no problem. Next we go to the latest, and in my opinion, not greatest, flat mount. These are really designed for carbon bikes, I believe. And on the flat mount, it's flat. On the front, you generally need an adapter. On the rear, you generally don't. Although we're seeing a lot of forks with bolts that go straight through the fork leg and into the bottom mounting holes, such as that. Now, like I said, these are all the same. And people will call or email and they'll say, hey, I want to put a 180 rotor on my bike. Well, most frames are, in general, a lot of road bikes are 140 in the rear, 160 in the front with a 0, no adapter. Now, the thing is, they can weld this on anywhere they want. They could weld this on so it only fits a 250 millimeter rotor. So you're going to need, we're not going to know exactly what applies to your frame and fork. You're going to have to call them if you really want to find out, if you don't know. But like I said, if you already have an adapter on there and you're working on a bike with existing brakes already that's built up, just use the adapter that you have. So we do make a number of adapters. They've been in and out of stock like everything else. We haven't concentrated so much on adapters. We've steered a lot of our production into actual brake making because all the adapters are the same. We do make a flat mount front adapter if your fork needs it. Oh, the other question, you have IS and you buy some flat mount brakes, and we do not make adapters for that. I believe they're out there. I've seen them. They're funny looking. I don't necessarily trust them. It's just kind of a little too much going on for me, but if it works for you, that's great. And like I said, check with the frame and fork manufacturer if you want to really nail down what your bike was designed for. So another question is, why mechanical? Why not hydraulic? Well, the short answer is I am a mechanically minded person. My brain works pretty good in mechanical design. And so I just thought I would tackle that and see what we could do. There are some advantages if you're into certain situations. Number one, no bleeding, no fluids, no high altitude, no run out of pressure. They're easy to move. You can move them to all kinds of different bikes. All you're going to need is some regular mechanical levers and a cable. And these brakes will outlast all of us, so they'll be going on down the road, and you're going to want to switch them around. And also, you know, all us bike nerds have a box of parts. We've got different levers. We put drop bars on bikes that's supposed to have flat bars. So then we need a brake that works with a drop bar, and we just happen to have these cable ones, et cetera, et cetera. One advantage of the mechanical is if you're using different levers, this arm is all you need to change between different lever throws, depending on what levers you're using. And you don't have to buy a whole new caliper. It's way cheaper just to buy the arm. This is a long arm. Here's a long arm. This is a short arm. You can see the difference. And then we have the really short arm, which is compatible with Campagnolo. Campagnolo has a very short throw, very old-fashioned. It's something like 30% less than a Shimano. Road bike lever. The other thing is we use this is what hadn't been done before in this realm, which I think is why these things sell so good. We use very high quality materials. There's heat treatment, there's anodizing, there's gauges to measure things. Everything fits really, really well together. All the parts move very smoothly. Right here we have, which would normally be a plastic cheap bushing for a thrust washer, which is a lot of friction, and when you're going downhill for 10 miles has a tendency to melt, which is kind of a drag. We use what's called a needle roller bearing, thrust bearing, which is vastly superior, will last forever. And then the pistons, which we call the pistons, that's the part that pushes. We have one piston that's actuated by the arm. We have another piston that actually pushes on the pad. Those are heat-treated steel with some very nice round spherical ball bearings in between. I've got a high-quality spring. This is made in Utah. The pads. These are the same pattern that fits an Avid Elixir. It's one of the most popular brakes. There's SRAM versions. They're very common. You can be in the middle of North Dakota, find a bike shop. If they have one pair of pads, it's probably going to be these. So that part is pretty handy. The other thing, and this is what really got me when I was running Avids and trying all kinds of TRP brakes, and just the adjustment is a pain. My fingers, I'm old, it hurts to turn those plastic adjusters, and they have a place for a wrench, but you're in the middle of bum exclamation point, and you're tired, but you got to adjust your brakes. You don't want to get a wrench out. It's just very frustrating. So we really did a lot of work, a lot of prototyping, a lot of experimenting on getting these so they turn with your fingers but do not turn on the trail. And we're quite proud of that fact. Right here, we have changed. This is what we call the ball detent, which locates, there's some grooves in these threads, and each one of those grooves, the ball bearing drops into it and holds it. There is a kit. The earlier brakes had a different style that was much stiffer. We are now offering a kit that is 3 separate pieces and with a loose ball, a spring, and a set screw. And those are really highly adjustable, although they probably don't need it. You just put the set screw in and you're good to go. And that takes a lot of the guessing on the tension of the old style of how much to screw that screw in right there. Should they need servicing, and they probably won't ever, but we're humans, we like to take things apart. These can be taken apart with hand tools, completely cleaned, rebuilt, re-greased. That's another video that's already been done. It's very informative. Put back together with a, a medium level mechanic skill. And it's really easy. It's just highly user serviceable. And they, like I did mention before, they're just going to outlast all of us. Now, the other thing that goes into this mechanical design, this is another question I get. Why the single-sided actuation? Now, as you can see, the lever rotates, presses one pad. The other pad is stationary. The rotor will flex, and you can use center lock rotors with big aluminum hubs. It's still going to work great. But you see all these guts? This is fairly wide. This is why the brakes work so well. Now, if we took all these guts and put them on this side, which has been done by a different company, there's just not enough room. This would be in the spokes. Not going to work. So what the other company did is they miniaturized all this stuff. And honestly, sure, the pads both move, but the power and the modulation, just not nearly what we've got here. Do not be afraid of your rotor flexing. They're thin stainless steel. They don't mind. It works great. One of the other really popular questions or comments is, hey, my bolts are rusty. What should I do? I'm freaking out. Surface rust, it's actually protecting the metal underneath. Nothing to worry about. Never had one failure ever. But we are currently using these high strength grade 5 steel screws because they're very strong. We have been experimenting with some alternatives, might be available, but for now, stronger is better, and because this is holding your brake together. The other thing is, please do not take these apart. They are held in a special fixture. It's milled out to hold this thing securely without scratching it, and these are torqued to the absolute maximum value. So you are not going to have that kind of capability at home when you go to put them back together, and when you do put them back together, we do not want them to loosen up. That is bad. So please do not remove these screws. They were never meant to be removed. But like I said, in the future, we might have a non-corrosive version for you. So to summarize, number 1, Pale Ale by Sierra Nevada is very good. Number 2, this is a mechanical brake, but it's on a completely different par of every other mechanical brake that we've seen. Every part internally is finished perfectly, machined to very exacting specifications. We know these will outlast all of us and will someday either become a collector's item, or you'll be working on your mother-in-law's bike and you'll have these in your workbench and you'll put them on there and they'll be still usable and they're going to work great, and these pads will probably still be available. We know you're going to love them. I'm probably more proud of this than any other thing I've ever designed. And any questions, give us a call. Oh, hey, you're still here. Great. Just want to let you know, one thing I forgot to talk about in there is when you're buying housing and cables, just stick with the basic spiral wound housing. It goes around the corners, really nice. We don't want a lot of friction with the cable inside the housing, and compressionless just does not like going around corners. Any other questions, make sure you give us a call and check out all our other videos, and happy trails.